All right, so thank you guys for joining here. So welcome to the 5th episode of MEV Space. My name is Brian, and I'm the Chief Content Officer of Igonfi. So MEV Space brings together the sharpest minds in crypto to dissect the evolving MEV landscape. So today we'll discuss Savage MEV's evolution on EVM chains. So today we have a group of great speakers here to unwind the mystery of it. And I'm also happy to have Ben from BTCS as our co-host. First, let's do a round of self-introduction and the job you've been doing about sandwiches. So how about we start from Luis?
Yep, thanks. I'm Luis. I work with BrainBot as the product manager at Shatter Network. And Shatter Network is a threshold encryption as a service mechanism, I would say. And we apply it sort of primarily in the form of an encrypted mempool to combat front running and real-time censorship. I'm live on Gnosis chain, and we built it as an OP stack testnet, and we also are making the case for it to be implemented on Ethereum L1. And we also offer sort of encryption as a service, more generally speaking, for commit and reveal and time lock use cases via this new API, which we call Shutter API, more on the application level there.
Great. Appreciate it. Now let's move on with Yixin.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Yixin, and currently I am a data scientist at Igonfi. And as you know, we run a dashboard to track the typical MEV trades, both from a big view and in detail. And part of my work is to look out for some interesting cases, like trades with really high volumes or big profits, or something that involve complex pools. So when I find something unusual, I just dig into it to see if there's a new strategy behind it, so that we can share some insights with the community to keep everyone up to date on what's evolving in this space. Yeah, I'm glad to be here to share some insights with you.
Okay, thank you. So next we have Hildabi. So Hildabi, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Hildabi. I'm head of data at venture capital firm Dragonfly, and I've been working on data for several years, even before Dragonfly, using Dune Analytics, publishing a lot of dashboards, as well as hundreds of data sets on the platform. Some of them being on MEV. So I've singled out sandwiches across, I think, 15 chains, as well as atomic arbitrage. So yeah, I knew there was a lot of really cool explorers such as Eigenfi, but I wanted to have a more macro look, as well as, you know, being able to dive into this data and couple it with other data sets for hopefully deeper analysis.
Okay, cool. So last but not least, we have our co-host Ben. So Ben, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ben. I'm the VP of Engineering at BTCS. Currently working on a block builder for BTCS, but I've been in the MEV space for the last 4 years. Basically just being an engineer building MEV toolchain. So I've worked with searchers directly, builders, and the entire stack for MEV on Ethereum, and also getting started on MEV on BSC as well.
Okay, cool. Let me set the stage for Sandwich. So I'm gonna do a brief introduction for audience here who are not familiar with sandwich attacks. So a sandwich attack is a trading technique, a decentralized exchange. So where a bot profits by placing two transactions around a user's pending trade. So usually, it's like it can be described in 3 steps. So first, the bot front runs by buying the asset before the user's trade and causing the price to rise. So then, after the user's trade executes at its higher price, the bot backruns by selling the asset, securing a profit. So this manipulation exploits the transparent nature of blockchain transactions and the mechanics of automatic market makers. so leading to users receiving fewer tokens than expected. So this kind of attacks actually can cause a lot of loss for victims. Like during the last MEV space, we discussed a user lost like hundreds of thousands of dollars in 5 minutes in 6 sandwiches. So my first question is actually for Hugh W. So like you said, you mentioned that you already compiled like the doing dashboard like covering 15 EVM chains, right? So what is the most impressive data or trend that you got your attention in terms of in the macro level?
So in terms of macro, there's a couple things. I think the interesting is the interest part is like looking at historical changes through major shifts in data. The two of them that I can think of is 2 years ago, Optimism had the Bedrock upgrade, which essentially made EIP 1559 go live, which is a better fee market. And prior to then, transactions were practically free. This caused a huge shift in sandwiches because even though there was still a centralized sequencer, back then people were spamming transactions, hoping for sandwich transactions, or at least that's my interpretation. And essentially the upgrade kind of killed sandwich attacks on that chain. And we see something similar on Binance Smart Chain just last month with the Goodwill Alliance. And you can actually see the data where sandwich attacks were predictably eradicated for this month.
Okay. Yeah, that's yeah. I saw the data too. It's kind of like pretty impressive, right? So it's like from 93% to like 15 or something. So that's a pretty good sign. I mean, yeah. Okay. My next question is actually for Yixin. So, as part of the Eigenfan team, so we've been monitoring sandwich on Ethereum since 2022. So could you please like share with us some unique cases that you've been observed?
Sure. I think I will share some interesting sandwich categories from a more microscopic view that occurred on Ethereum, and to show that how sandwich attacks have changed over time. And the first category occurred in early days, before Flashbots offered bundle protection. And at that time, it was kind of the uncharted territory for these sandwich tradings, because miners had full control over the order of transactions, and the sandwich bots other than these miners had to play guessing games with gas fees to get their transactions in the right position as expected. And in this condition or restrictions, so to speak, some sandwich were most of the sandwich, I'd like to say, were very simple, just one user in the middle, because the risk and difficulty will rise up with more as the number of transactions they need to order. But sometimes we found some interesting behavior, or some cases strange, because there was some case that one attacker's background got sandwiched by another attacker, which means that sandwich bots at this period, when just attacking users, they were attacking each other also. So this is the first category that emerged before we have some protection opportunities to change the rule. And the second category occurred mainly after the transaction, when Flashbots introduced bundle protection in the first quarter, I think in 2021. And the bundle protection service is offered to users and upcharge bots, to give them a private way to send transactions. build miners or builders, and it was meant to reduce sandwich attacks on the main chain, on the main chain, and I think from a technical view, the service or the bundle protection didn't block sandwich bundles, and miners or builders had no incentives to reject these kind of bundles. At least from the data we have observed, we found that the sandwich attacks actually became more creative. Instead of just targeting one user, some bundles started sandwiching dozens of victims at once because they have bundle protection, and the attack style became more diverse and aggressive. Even LPs providing liquidity to Uniswap or Balancer can become victims. And this is a second category. And now we observe a new, I think a new category with more advanced strategies, and majorly in two types. Some attackers manage to use flash loans from Aave or Balancer to borrow large amounts of capital for just one trade, which means they can scale up each individual attack without locking up their own funds. I think it's really a need to pay attention to. And on the other hand, we all be familiar with Jared. Bots like Jared, they can use smart cost-saving designs to attack more users. These users may not be victims in before, but when Jared can save its own cost, these users, even though they may have set the slippage protection, they can also be sandwiched, or they can be used by Jared to pump up the price for the next victim. And so the strategies used by Jared is more sophisticated than other sandwich bots. And we can see that as the sandwich bot evolves, it becomes more hard. It becomes harder to detect and to prevent from them. So these are our recent observations in this space. Thank you.
So that's interesting. You're saying that Jared uses other mempool transactions that have like correctly set slippage amounts to actually front run another user's poorly set slippage transactions.
Yeah. In a simple sandwich, we can always find one front run transaction, but in Jared's trades, we can find that sometimes he will split its front run transaction into 2 or 3, and in between these splitted front run transactions, there will be other victims transactions that with same token pair, same direction of swap. So and we have done some simulation to see if the victim can be sandwiched alone, and we found that the victim have already set some slippage protection, and maybe it's not profitable for Jared to just sandwich itself, but it can be used as some like pump up the price to help Jared to sandwich others.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think the meaning of this latest strategy means that no trade is too small for Jared to exploit. So everybody needs to kind of like pay attention to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, the space is always so interesting. It sucks how exploitative this nature is for like sandwich bundles, but some of the creative ways that people find MEV opportunities is always so interesting to me.
Do we know how these very most sophisticated sort of MEV searchers are using, let's say, AI or agentic stuff to scale their activities, or is that kind of just an unknown black box?
I think they generally try to keep it as a black box, but I do know that I've heard from a few people from the Jaredfromsubway team is that it's a pretty large group of developers. At least that's the rumors in the MEV mill. The I think that AI with some of this stuff might be a little bit too slow to like characterize these transactions or these trades to be able to quickly output a profitable path for those.
Yeah, for the high, yeah, but just maybe the long tail of stuff like that, it's not really worth for them to look at on some obscure chain or yeah. But I'm just yeah.
Yeah, one more data to add is that we noticed that like about 83% of the sandwiches actually are done by Jared. So although most of them actually not with pretty high profit, but still like this very astounding number. Okay, and next question is for Luis. So Social Networks has been working on encrypted mempool for a while, right? So recently you guys released a white paper and a research post on Ethereum Foundation's forum. So if we return to the first principle, so do you think encrypted mempool is the best way to solve sandwich attacks, or is there any other that can be done?
Yeah, good question. So there's many things you can do, right? And then the most usual thing that is being done is private mempools, right? And or in the case of L2, sort of trusting the sequencer not to front run, and that can solve it kind of solve some of the issues of the malicious part of MEV, which is usually front running is usually considered to be the malicious aspect of MEV. But that isn't, in our view, that isn't really the long-term solution, because you are just transferring, or you're just moving the trust assumption really to that private mempool or the sequencer, right? So whereas maybe like short term you have solved it in some ways, you are entrenching and you're now centralizing this problem even more. And in general, I think we have a huge problem with centralization in the PBS transaction supply chain, also characterized by relays, builders. There's all these sort of centralized, relatively centralized intermediaries along the PBS transaction supply chain that I think sort of like quick band-aid solutions like private mempools are even more dangerous in the long term because they entrench centralized intermediaries. So so we think kind of a decentralized sort of encrypted mempool is the best solution, and probably because so first and foremost it just makes it so that no single party can see what's in the transactions before the order is sort of finalized and before the inclusion of these transactions are included. So neither the validator nor a relay nor a searcher or anyone can see the transactions until they are then finalized, and only afterwards can you see them. And that's how, yeah, so that's kind of fundamentally how we think, how it works, right? And then it gets decrypted and then executed. And we think that in general can sort of prevent the front running and leave open the background, or the back running type of MEV cannot be prevented this way. So that is then kind of just left open to any way how the chain wants to deal with that MEV. And just I love this this first principles approach, right? And like why do we think it's the best solution, or why from a bird's eye perspective, kind of, is in the real world you have the same problem, right? You have sort of front running, and you also have payment for order flow, and you have this general MEV problem. It's just called differently, right? And you have brokers, and you have intermediaries between you and your transaction, and market makers, and things like this. But in the real world, actual front running is not a problem anymore, right? You can be sure that your transaction will not get front run because it's illegal, kind of, and because you are trusting the exchange operator, especially to not front run you, right? And the exchange operator, if he wants to maintain a good sort of trading, a good marketplace that is a legal, be sort of just a healthy, kind of efficient marketplace, they just don't allow front running. They don't front run themselves, and they don't allow front running, right? So kind of, I think the ideal place we want to get to is where you can trust the marketplace that there's no front running, but then in blockchain we can decentralize that trust assumption, right? We don't have to trust a centralized intermediary not to front run you, but rather with this kind of decentralized threshold encryption approach, where you distribute the trust assumption to a subset K out of N of these encryption nodes, you hopefully end up with the same sort of level of trust, where you can trust that there's no front running, right? But you're not relying on any single entity to guarantee that. Kind of, I would say that's the high level. I want to go to that healthy marketplace while keeping it decentralized. Kind of.
That's really cool. So how do you guys actually control the execution of those transactions? Or how does encrypted mempools, how do they work with like, I guess, contentious block space, right? Where the order of the transactions is important, but you don't know what the output of those transactions are until they're finalized.
Yeah, so the simple answer is it encrypts it, and the order, again, is sort of committed to and finalized, and then it's executed. So we don't know, and the validator doesn't know beforehand. Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is that you don't know the order. You don't know how to how to order those, aside from maybe like priority fees or anything that are maybe exposed.
Yeah.
So you won't know what
the
output is. That's okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, so it obviously it disables some positive aspects, right, of MEV, or kind of so some MEV things are positive and can kind of enhance user experience, right? So maybe some of these are then taken away again from the user, and we sort of go back to this pre-PBS or pre-Flashbots world in some aspects. But we think also that's a different layer, right? So I think I would say that we need to get to just a neutral, kind of censorship-resistant base layer, right? And then those trading type of things, or UX enhancement, like account abstraction, they can live on the layer above, right? So a different way to think about it is, you could build a whole tenth layer and this whole sort of like separate transaction ordering system on top. But then in the end, you still have someone who wants to put his final sort of bundle or partial block or full block on chain. They also don't want to get front run by another bundler, right? So we think at that point, again, you will still want to have that kind of neutral base layer. So we think hopefully it can be combined. Hopefully you can have all these benefits of more creative transaction ordering and what's generally, I would say, just trading, right? Market making trading, and intent solving and all these things can live on the layer above. And underneath, I think it is desirable for everyone to have an as neutral as kind of a base layer that is as neutral as possible, and where you can be kind of sure that if you reveal information to the chain, that you are benefiting from that information, and you can safely reveal the information to the chain without having the fear that someone else benefits from that information. Right?
That's really cool. That actually leads really well into our next question for everyone on the panel here. How should we balance transparency with security in MEV? And whoever wants to handle that first.
I can give a quick, just high level opinion. I think kind of information symmetry, right, is the key, just on a very high level. So so transparency is important, I think. Also, privacy is important and transparency is important. Although we need both. Kind of sometimes we need privacy, sometimes we need transparency. And the end goal should be to have information symmetry. Right? And if you have information symmetry, you can guarantee an equal marketplace. And sometimes you need to hide stuff, and sometimes you need to expose stuff. And in the end, obviously, ideally, things need to be transparent from a transaction perspective, not from an anonymity perspective. But yeah.
Hildabi, Yizin, any thoughts as well on transparency?
I mean,
Well,
it's this. Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
Okay, I think it's a big question for me, and I cannot share opinions from the technical angle. I just want to share some of my opinion from the angle of Ethereum user or some researcher from the MEV space. I think the goal of the blockchain or DeFi is more likely to be to create a trustless or a more secure trading market, and we introduce transparency as a method to achieve that in the current stage. So maybe transparency is not the goal of our design, and we leverage the public mempool and the open ledger to make sure that everyone can verify that builders and validators are playing by the rules. But the result is that too much transparency also brings some challenges for us, and we are trying to tackle with the challenges right now. And I like to break the trading process into three parts. The first stage is the price discovery stage, and then matching the intentions, and last we need to settlement. And I think DeFi right now provide a solution, or in DeFi we can process the needs in the matching and the settlement stage with open and permissionless manner, which is a major advantage over CeFi. But during the price discovery stage, where many MEV boards is working in this stage, right now almost all market data is fully exposed, and it makes the market or the price somewhat predictable, and so that some bad actors can exploit the information to further exploit the users. And since this is a challenge we are discussing today, and to solve these kinds of issues, we right now we didn't have a solution that can fully fully protect the price discovery process in a trustless way, and we use some fixes like modular designs like PBS, or some private mempools to mitigate the issue. But I think this cannot fully solve the problem, and we also are discussing how to encrypt the mempool to make the transaction fully private until it was landed on it was finally landed on chain. But I'm not sure if this kind of solution can also keep the some kinds of MEV like backgrounding or upcharge remain active in the process to make the price discovery more efficient. I'm not sure, but I think the trade-off lies here. The real trade-off we need to balance is the problem how to improve the price discovery process in a trustless way, and maybe we need to discuss and decide which part of the transaction information must remain fully public or transparent, and which part might benefit from some kind of privacy ensured by the cryptographic tools. Yeah, this is what I'm thinking about, and yeah, I think Luis may have more opinion on this kind of problem. Thank you.
I think you put very well there. And yeah, just to add to that, yeah, as you said, exactly, not everything can be prevented, and nor should you want to prevent all MEV, right? In general, MEV is also just arbitrage. Arbitrage is good for the price discovery, right? Yeah, so, but yeah, I think you're very correct with some of the aspects you want to use cryptography or other mechanisms to provide privacy, and then some others you don't. And it's all about timing when to do that. Yeah. And then I think long term, very long term, I think there's this beautiful, hopefully everything kind of works together, right? This beautiful, I mean, just for blockchain privacy in general, right? Hopefully there's this end state where we can have full auditability, full verifiability, full trustlessness, all based on encrypted data, right? In some crazy FHE powered, indistinguishability, obfuscation powered virtual black box machine, right? Where it all just works and it just prints out sort of proofs that everything is correct and that everything is working beautifully. But yeah, it's going to be a little longer way towards that.
Yeah, for now, I think MEV is like an inherent problem of decentralized systems. And so far, all attempts at trying to remedy that problem, or at least mostly front running, have been around centralization in some shape or form. And of course, those work as fixes for now, but ideally we want to land on some system that balances decentralization as well as maybe um, less front running for the end users. I think encryption does make sense, maybe in the mempool, for the mempool, but that also has some implication for transactions where um, that benefit from being seen in the mempool that aren't MEV target transactions essentially. But I think it's a really good research topic, and trying to see how we could improve the systems later down the line is something everyone would benefit from. And yeah, I'm very curious to see where we go from here. And I'm also curious in seeing how other blockchains, because for now most of MEV is on Ethereum, has been on Binance Smart Chain. L2s, due to centralized sequences, haven't seen it too much, but eventually we'll see hopefully more decentralized sequences on those layer 2s, and the same problem with the rise. So maybe this brings more people working on that same problem, and we can find one, if not multiple, solutions.
On that last point, I can also just recommend to look into the Arbitrum Espresso work that they've been doing on decentralized time boost. That is a decentralized sequencer, right? The Espresso decentralized sequencer, and also uses a threshold encryption sort of approach to mitigate front running. I think it's a pretty interesting design architecture.
Okay, interesting. I'll take a look. Thank you.
And then our last question today, I'm actually mixing it up a little bit because we kind of answered this earlier with the Jared from Subway strategy. So I hope I don't throw everyone through a loop here. But the main question I have is how hard is it to identify a trade or transactions inside of a block as a sandwich attack versus some other type of MEV happening on the block? Hildabi, I feel like you have that with your dashboards that you're monitoring this on those macro levels. You probably are running into issues, maybe like trying to know if one's like a back running bundle or if it's just an actual sandwich attack. So what's the challenge there? How hard is it to identify those?
So on Dune, what I benefit from already is a table called dex.trades, which is fairly popular and has all decentralized trades across many exchanges. And since it's so widely used, it's also updated frequently to add latest dexes. So I'm using this as a foundation, and then I'm looking for heuristics, specific heuristics. For sandwiches, I have two different tables that, by the way, anyone can query, look into for multiple chains. The first being the kind of sandwich attack transactions. For those, I'm looking for, a back and forth matching transaction with at least one victim in between where the same pool was affected. So I feel like those are fairly deterministic. You don't accidentally trade on the same pool in the same block back and forth with a victim in between. That seems like a very unlikely scenario for this to happen randomly. So I've kind of, assumed that all those are sandwich attacks. And then for sandwich attacked transactions, those just happen to be, those transactions that are placed in between and are surrounded by at least one attacker. There's a lot of things that could be refined. One of the main kind of problems is that I currently don't factor any kind of liquidity changes in pools. I only look at trades themselves. So you could always enhance and add more MEV transactions. But I wanted to get that first set, which is I believe the majority of MEV activity out of the way, and maybe later down the line work again on it, or if someone else wants to improve it, anyone's welcome to contribute on Dune.
Yeah, one of the reasons I ask this is there's a lot of block builders in the space and on Ethereum or even in other chains. At some point, they all want to filter out harmful MEV, either front running or sandwich attacks. And so they they try to set up these like bundle heuristics to filter on the incoming side before they include those bundles in chain. And there always ends up being ways that searchers are able to work around those heuristics. So it's always curious to me to see like where people are getting their data and are there sandwich attacks that we're not seeing in these chains or on these dashboards or these tools because they're working around that kind of heuristic style.
Yeah, I think my data is probably undercounting a little bit due to many complex strategies arising. But the most efficient and well-known strategy tends to be single block, two trades back and forth. Like I said, the only major problem is the liquidity part, which can be used for JIT attacks and stuff like this. But I feel like it's a good step of the way, and um, I don't really see any ways to go around my heuristics, or at least for if you're looking at like trades themselves and not liquidity.
Oh, it makes sense. All right, I think that's it for the questions that we have on the schedule here. We do have a few more minutes left on the time for this. Does anyone in the audience maybe have questions that want to ask the panels, or anyone on the panel, anything you want to mention for like final thoughts?
if anyone wants to look into this data, feel free to DM and ask any questions. I'm happy to help. It's all publicly accessible, and the goal was for I'm not deep into the MEV space. I hover around a lot of different analytics, and the goal was for anyone to enhance on that work and hopefully bring more access to this data. So yeah, please feel free to use for anything. It's all out there for you guys.
Yeah. So, for Hill Davies, do you have any plans for further investigation into sandwiches in terms of data on the Dune?
I have some slight fixes. I was talking to some Flashbots people about some small things I need to fix in my query heuristics. But for now, I'm mostly working on other topics. So I'm looking at surfacing all bridge transactions, central exchange activity on chain and stuff like this. That there's so many sector analytics that MEV is one side of it, but I want to have all these, I guess, evergreen important sectors surfaced in some way for anyone to look into and analyze. And it's also important to mention that many of those kind of play a role with one another. So MEV by itself is super cool, but it can actually be enhanced by having other data sets, and deeper analysis can be brought in that way rather than just by enhancing the data set itself. So yeah, a lot of my work is creating many tables on Dune, and for me to showcase in dashboards. But the goal is also for anyone to query and do their analysis using those.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess it's time to wrap up. I think we all have a lot of things can be done regarding sandwich attacks, and I think the future is kind of like still not very clear, but it's definitely something that worth doing for the health of the ecosystem and for everybody's future in this crypto space. Okay, all right. So that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the speakers and listeners here, and hopefully we can talk something about sandwiches or other types of MEVs in our future MEV spaces. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.